Hey, this is Angie Brown from Exam Pro, and we are going to be doing the CodeDeploy follow along. So we're going to learn how to set up automated deployment using CodeDeploy. And the first thing we're going to need to do is get an EC2 instance set up with a basic web page that we're going to turn to an AMI, which we'll use for CodeDeploy. So let's make our way over to EC2. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go to instances on the left-hand side. We're going to launch a new instance. And I want you to choose Amazon Linux 2, the top one there, hit select. We're gonna go with the T2 Micro because we want to save money. And what I want you to do is just drop down here and you should have this SSM EC2 service role. If you don't, let's just go through the process of creating that right now. But we have created it in other follow-alongs here, but just in case you don't have it, I'm just gonna delete this role here and make a new one. And this allows us to gain access to Sessions Manager if we need to log into this instance. So I'm gonna go EC2. Next, we are going to let this load here. I'm going to type SSM. Next, SSM EC2 service role. That's what I like to call it. We'll go ahead and create that there. And then what you'll do is go back here, refresh, and then this role should now appear. So that's very important that you set that because it's going to save us a lot of trouble. Now down below, we have the ability to put in a user data script. This is what we came here to do. So let's set up a basic web application. So what I'm going to do is go over to Cloud9, and you should have a Cloud9 environment. If you don't, watch the Elastic Beanstalk follow along or some of the other ones where I show you how to set up Cloud9. It's very easy to get an environment set up. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a new folder here on the left-hand side. I'm going to call this CodeDeploy project. And I'm just going to make a new file in here called userdata.sh. And what we're going to do is set up a script that's going to set up Apache in a basic web page. So the first thing we need to do is specify our shebang. Our shebang is going to tell this script what it should use to execute it, which will be bash. We're going to want to switch to the sudo, the EC2 user when we log in. We're going to want to install HTTP, which is what Apache is. Then we will want to change the ownership of the directory for the var ww. This just makes it a lot easier to work with it. So we're going to change that to the EC2 user. The next thing we want to do is we're going to make a basic web page. So we're going to place an index file in var www.html and have index.html. That's where Apache looks by default. And we're going to use a nice here doc here to do a multi-line here in bash, which is very useful to know. And so I'm just going to make a very, very basic website, the ugliest website I can think of. So we'll just get an HTML in there, then we'll get a head, and we'll get a body in there. And we'll need a title. My CodeDeploy app. And we will do the same thing here in the body, except instead of having a title, we're going to make that an H1. And then there's just a couple things we need to do down below. We need to start up Apache using systemctl. You could use the alternative syntax, which is sudo service http start, but I noticed that if you do that, the enable doesn't work. So this is why I'm using the more long form format here. So that's for anyone that is very familiar with this. For whatever reason, it's not working in the other format. And so that should be everything. So switch to EC2 user, install Apache, change ownership, create that initial file, and that looks all good to me. So I'm going to copy this here, go over here. As you can see, you could input a file, but I'm just going to use text here. Nice and plain. And assuming I got that all right, we'll be in great shape. If we don't, that's okay. We'll make our way in there using Sessions Manager. So we just need to set up a security group here. So I'm going to go next, next, next. I like naming. Actually, I'm going to go to tags. This is always a good idea. We're just going to put a name. I'm going to say my CodeDeploy app. So if we do that, it will name it. And I usually do that afterwards. And we're going to make a new security group here just so we can see what we're doing. My CodeDeploy SG. and we're going to open up port 80. We do not need port 22 because we will not SSH into this. We can get into it using Sessions Manager. We'll hit launch. I want you to drop down, proceed without a key pair, which is super more safe. And we will go to, we'll click on that instance there. And now all we have to do is wait for it to launch. So I'll see you here in a moment. Okay, so we have a running state. Both the status checks have not passed, but that's okay because generally we can check the website, but we should usually wait for those 2 checks. I'm just grabbing the IP address here and refreshing, and there's my application. Now, what's really important to check whenever you set up an app here is to restart the server, because we absolutely want to be sure that if we stop and start this again, it reboots. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go stop. And we're just going to let this shut down here. It shouldn't take too long. Just keep on refreshing here. And then once that's stopped, we're going to start it back up. So that is just a pro tip for you, because there's a high chance that the service might not start up because something's wrong with their script. And to find that out later is such a pain. You have to rebake the AMI. I do not want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and start this up again. And we'll just give that a refresh. I guess I'll see you back here in a moment when it's active again. Welcome back. I didn't wait for my status checks again, but it is running. And if we copy that IP address, we can see that the application is there. So we're all in great shape. If you did want to connect to this instance, you could go to Sessions Manager. But another way is just go click Connect here and go to Sessions Manager. We don't need to do anything here. I'm just showing you around. And so what you normally do is do sudo su-ec2 user, because it always logs you in as root. It'd be really nice if it logged you in as ec2 user. You could select that. If you're listening to AWS, please make that change. If we go to var www.html and do ls-la, there's our file. All right. So just getting you a little bit comfortable with EC2, and we'll pop out there. And so the next thing we need to do is make an AMI of this image. So I'm going to go here and create a new image. I'm going to call this my CodeDeploy app 000. It's great to version them this way. Always give it 3 zeros so you have a little bit of room to breathe. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create that image. And so if we go here, we'll just have to wait for that image to go pending. And once that is done, then we will, actually we can just leave our current server running. That is totally fine. But what we need to do next is set up a code commit repo. So we'll go to code commit. And the next thing here, I don't know if we need code commit right now. We'll need it for later. But yeah, you know what? We'll come back to code commit later. I was thinking later when we add it to the code pipeline, but that's something we can definitely do later. So what I'd rather do instead is to get CodeDeploy set up. And for that, we're going to need a deploy file, which they call appspec.yaml. So I'm just going to make a new file here called appspec.yaml. And let's make our way over to CodeDeploy. We might get stuck through this process if we don't actually have a way of deploying, but we will do the best we can here. So what I want you to do is on the left-hand side, go to Applications, and we're going to create a new application. And I can see that I have a test one here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. You're not going to have this. Oops. Anyway, we'll go back to Applications here, create a new one, and I'm going to call this My CodeDeploy App. And we'll hit, we'll choose EC2. We'll create the application. And so now that we have an application, we have to set up a deployment group. And we'll call this my deployment group, or my CodeDeploy deployment group, which is a bit silly. Enter a service role, a CodeDeploy permissions that grants AWS CodeDeploy to access your target instances. So we don't have one of those. So that's something we're going to have to go get. We probably can just go edit our existing EC2 role. So maybe that's what we'll end up doing. Okay, so I just pulled up the documentation quickly here, and I believe we need to make this service role. So what we'll do is we'll make our way over to IAM. So I already have it here on the left-hand side. You might have to type in IAM. We'll go over to roles. We're going to create a new role. We are going to choose probably CodeDeploy. What do we have to choose here? Choose a service with the role, choose CodeDeploy. All right. We'll go back to IAM here. We'll choose CodeDeploy. And then down below, we already have those presets. So we're going to choose CodeDeploy, which is for auto scaling. Yeah, it looks fine to me. We'll go next. We will see what we get there. So it's already predefined. We will hit next. I love it when they have those predefined ones for you. It saves you so much time. And we're just going to name it as suggested. So we'll go up to here. I'm just going to call it that. We'll create that role. Then we'll go back here. And let's see if it auto-completes. Enter a service role ARN. Well, there you go. I guess that's what we'll do. So we'll go into here. I'm just going to copy that ARN and paste it on in. And hopefully that works. We have in place in blue-green. I'm going to try to keep it simple and do in place. The environment configuration, select what you want to deploy. So we'll choose EC2 instance. And you can add up to 3 tags. So I guess I have to tag my EC2 instances. Oh boy. So what we'll do is we'll make our way over to EC2. We'll go to instances. There's our app. And what we'll do is we'll just add a tag. So we'll go edit tags. I'm going to call this app CD. And we'll save that. We'll go back over here and I'll say app CD. Add tag. Oops. I guess we only really need one there. So that should do it. We're going to do all at once. Sounds great to me. We're going to turn off load balancer. We don't need that. We're going to disable rollbacks. We're going to go ahead and create that deployment group. So now that we have this deployment group, it should know how to deploy. So if we want to go ahead and do a create deploy, and we scroll down here, what we need to do is supply the revision. So it's interesting you can't supply, like you have GitHub, but you can't do code commit. So, which is totally fine, I guess. So I guess what we're going to have to do is we need to supply a change to our server, a revision to our server. So what we'll have to do is make our way over to Cloud9, and we will make a revision. And then what we'll do is place it in an S3 bucket. So let's go over to Cloud9 here. I'm going to make a new file here. I'm going to call it index.html. I'm going to grab our code from over here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste this. And I'm just going to call this v2. v2. Now I think we're going to need to have an appspec.yaml file in this because that's what it uses to figure out the deploy. So yeah, I think that's what we'll need. So just give me a second to pull up the documentation for that. Okay, so I just pulled up the documentation for the appspec.yaml.file. But actually, you know what I think what we should do is we should go set up that code commit because this is going to make things a little bit more organized. And we'll just get this out of the way. So I'm going to go create here. I'm going to say my CodeDeploy app. And what we'll do is we'll hit create. And we're going to have this clone URL. So grab the HTTPS one. It copies to your clipboard. Make your way back to your Cloud9 environment. And what I want you to do is get into this folder here. So just go to tilde. Tilde takes it to the home, CodeDeploy project. And then we'll do git clone there. And that will put a folder inside of a folder, a little bit messy, but it works. And what I want you to do is drag this index.html into there. And then we'll drag this app.yaml into there as well. So that's a little bit more organized. And then let's open up our appspec.yaml. So the first thing we need to do is define our version. It's going to be version 0.0. I don't think there's any other version at this point. This is the only version there is for appspec. Then we'll do OS and we'll choose Linux because we're not using Windows. And we could set some other things like files and permissions. And that's where it's going to place the file. So I'm trying to decide where this should go. I guess I'm going to just place it. So we'll say source, which is the root of the revision we'll upload. And then I'm going to just supply the destination. I'm going to do home, EC2 user. Oops. No. We're going to put var www.html. So that's going to place it where we want it to be. And we're just going to make sure the permissions are as what we need them to be. So I'm going to do object, and we're going to say var ww dot. We've already done this already, but I'm going to just force it anyway. And it's also a nice way to see how we can use permissions to change permissions. EC2 user. We're going to do group EC2 user as well. And the next thing we'll do is we'll put in some hooks. So for hooks, there's the application stop. That's something we definitely want to do. And we will just name this. So we'll say location, and we'll say stop app.sh. We'll give it a timeout. It's always good to provide timeouts so that it doesn't take forever. Stopping the app is super, super fast. So we'll give it, I don't know, 10 seconds, which is, maybe we don't even need 10 seconds. I think it takes like 6 seconds. And we'll run this as EC2 user. And so that should be the premise of that one. We're going to need that stop app there. So I'm going to go here and make a new file. Say stop app.sh. Whoops. We will rename that because if it's named wrong, we're going to have a lot of trouble on our hands. So I'm going to just double click that there. We're going to go to user data and we're going to grab this line here. And what we're going to do is paste that in there. Generally, when you run commands, you want to give it the absolute path. So we need to know where the absolute path of HTTPD is. So what I'm going to do is connect to the instance here. We're going to use Sessions Manager. I'm going to hit connect. And we're going to get here sudo su-ec2 user. And then what we're going to do here is type in where is HTTPD, and that's going to give us the full path. So this, I believe, is the full path. I really hope that's the case. I guess I could just run it. Yep, that's it. And what we'll do is we'll go back here, and I'm just going to paste this in fully here because I do not want to have any problems. And I think it's this. There we go. So that's our stop. And we don't necessarily have to stop it. We could just restart it, I suppose. Maybe that's a little bit cleaner to do. I think that's what I'm going to do, actually. So I'm going to rename this to restart app. And that's going to avoid us a bunch of problems. And so instead of doing this in the application stop, I'm going to do this in the application start, which is one of the last things that it does. So for application stop, we're not going to do much here. There's the before install that we can put in here. There's nothing really to do there, but we're definitely going to need an after install. So after install, that means like after the code has been downloaded to the source directory. I'm still wondering if this is a smart idea to place it here. Maybe I'll just put it in a folder called revision. That's actually what I think I would prefer to do. And then what we can do here is we will just copy this here. And we are going to make a, we'll rename this to restart. And we'll rename this to update app. And what we'll do here is make that new file over here. I'm going to call that update app.sh. And we will open that one up there. And what I need to do is I need to make a command that's going to copy that revision. So I'm just going to double check, make sure I put a / in there. Yeah. So the revision should be stored here. So the first thing I would do is remove the old file. So I'd say remove var www.html index.html. And then I'd say copy revision to var and this one up here. I'm not going to read the whole thing out there. And so this should do it. Okay. And so, yeah, this should be our code spec. Now, what I'm going to go ahead here and do is commit all this stuff to our repo for a later step. Actually, we'll leave it alone for the time being. We don't have to do that. But I do need to zip the contents of the stuff that is here. So let me think about that. We'll go back to CodeDeploy. I'm pretty sure it expects it to be a zip. Copy and paste the Amazon S3 bucket where your revision is stored. And here you can see we have folder object.zip targ or tgz. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to figure out what the zip command is, and I'll be back here in a moment because I never can remember that off the top of my head. Okay, I am back. And I think I know what the command is. It's zip, and then you supply the name, and we'll do this in that actual folder there. So we'll go into there. I'm going to type in zip, and then whatever we want to call this. We'll say this is revision 000 or 0.1 maybe, zip. And then we need to say what files we want. So we want the AppSpec YAML, we want the index.html, we want the restart app, we want the update sh. Maybe we should match the version. So if it says version 2, let's just call it version 2. It'll be less confusing. And so I think we have everything. Update, restart. Yep, we have all the files we need. What we'll do is we'll hit enter. And that all looks good to me. So now we just need to get this revision file onto S3. And we're going to need a new S3 bucket. So using the CLI, it's going to be AWS S3 API, create bucket. And we're going to give it a bucket name, of course. And the name is going to be my CodeDeploy app. If that doesn't work, you might have to choose a more unique name because S3 names are unique like domain names. And we're going to specify the region. Always specify the region. It makes our life a lot easier. Always US East 1. And I did not use the command correctly. AWS S3. API S3. Hold on here. AWS S3 API. Help. Yep, there's a create bucket command. And so we'll do create bucket. Just scroll down here for a second. I'm just looking for an example. Okay, so it's just : bucket. I called it bucket name. So that's not the command that I was supposed to do there. So I'm just going to hit up there, and we're going to make our way over here and just take out the -name part. And there we go, it created the bucket. So now what we need to do is copy this revision to there. So I'm going to do AWS S3 CP. Why it's not S3 API, why there's two different ones, I have no idea why, but that's just how they have it. And so we'll specify that file, which is revision 2. And then we need to specify the bucket. So S3 : then we'll put the name of the bucket here. And we'll just maybe put in a new folder called revisions. And yeah, maybe we'll call it version 2. And we'll hit upload there. And so now it's uploaded. So if we make our way back over to here, it's now expecting that bucket path. And we are just going to go back to our Cloud9 environment, and we have it right here. So I'm going to just grab it. Okay, and paste that there. The revision type is a zip. That is correct. And there's that application stop lifecycle. I don't remember this option being here before. Don't fail to deploy to an instance if this lifecycle event on instance fails. No, that's a cool option here. So we don't have to do anything with that. We don't need to override anything there, and we don't have to do anything like that. Normally, you have to add a CodeDeploy agent to the EC2 instance for this to work. So I'm just wondering if I need to give permissions for that there. Maybe we should do that before we proceed forward, because I feel like that's going to give us trouble if we don't do that. So what we'll do is go back to our EC2 instance, and it's already running, and we have this SSM EC2 role that's here. And so what I want you to do is I want you to go to IAM. And we're going to just create ourselves a new unique role for this app. So I'm just going to go EC2, next, and I'm going to add some policies. So I want the SSM one definitely, and then I want the CodeDeploy agent. Yeah, and we'll hit next, and I'm going to call this my CodeDeploy app role, and we will create that role. What we'll do is we'll make our way back to the EC2 console. Not sure where that is. We'll just type that in again. We'll go to instances on the left-hand side. We'll look up this instance, and I'm pretty sure we can just replace the role through here. Where are you? Attach, replace IAM role. So we will swap it out for my CodeDeploy role, and we'll hit apply, and we will close that. I don't know if we'll have to restart the app. I don't think so. And the IAM role is not part of the actual AMI. We attach it when it launches, so that's another thing we don't have to worry about. So what we'll do is we will go back to CodeDeploy, and I think we're all in good shape here. Deployment description, add a brief description, deploy version 2. That's what we want to happen. Now, whether that will work, I guess we'll find out here in a moment. And we'll hit create deploy. And I'm so used to CodeDeploy deploys failing, so if this fails, I'm totally okay with that. Now this is an in-place deploy. Yeah, so I was thinking I needed the CodeDeploy agent because CodeDeploy might have to start up another autoscaling group or something, but I just realized it's an in-place deployment. That means it's not creating a new server. It's just going to take the server out of service and then apply the updates in place. And we will see, we can click view events here and see how that goes. Generally, this is super fast, so I'm not sure why it's taking its time. But I guess what I'll do here, I'm just going to click back. So if it's in place, it should be super fast. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait until we have the results here. If it fails, it fails, or if it times out, I guess we'll find out here shortly. All right, so this failed, but that's okay. I figured out what the problem was. I hopped onto AWS support because I was really stuck, and I realized I didn't install the CodeDeploy agent. I guess I just thought it was pre-installed on Amazon Linux 2, but I guess it's not, which is a bit frustrating. And they don't have a run command for that either, so I guess we'll have to manually install that. Not a big deal because we were smart enough to set up SSM just in case we had to go into our server. So let's go ahead and hit connect, go to Sessions Manager, connect, and then we'll go ahead and install CodeDeploy. So the first thing we need to do is get Ruby and wget. So actually we don't need wget, we can just use curl. And I just don't know if Ruby's already on here. No, there's no Ruby. So we're gonna do sudo yum install ruby-y, so we don't have to press Y to anything. And once that's installed, we're in good shape there. The next thing we need to do is assemble our curl. So we need the bucket name and the identifier. So I'm going to go to here. And I'm just going to open up our CodeDeploy app here, make a new file, just so I have a bit of a scratch pad to work with. Because I need to grab the region. So we are in this one here, the bucket name. So we need this. And then we need US East 1. And then we need to copy the link. Where'd the link go? I wasn't all over the place. I don't know where I am. Okay, here we are. And so we're going to copy this and put that in as the bucket name, and then copy this and put that in as the region identifier. And so we'll need to make a curl command, and then I think we can go like this. And we probably want to put it in our home EC2 user. Install is probably a good place for it. I never can remember which way the arrow goes. But we'll try it this way, and if it's not, we'll flip that arrow to the left. But it seems like this should go into that. We'll go back to Sessions Manager here. I'm just going to hit enter. I don't know if we switched to sudo when we went into here. It's a good question. Sudo su-ec2 user. Okay, do we have Ruby? Oh yeah, we do. Great. And so I'll just paste that in there again. Oh, whoops, we don't need the wget in there. That was an accident. We'll do ls-la. There is our install file, and so we can proceed to do the rest here. So we'll chmod that file, make it executable. And then we will then go ahead and install that. That shouldn't take too long. And let's just confirm that it is running. That is great. And just one more thing, we're just going to remove that install file. So now that we have our CodeDeploy agent, we should be able to deploy. I also think there was one other minor mistake. If we go into, we'll just remove this file, we don't need it. If we go into here, I was thinking I need the absolute path here. I don't. So just remove that out of your restart app. And we'll go back to CodeDeploy, and we'll go back a step here. Oh, we'll have to rebundle our update.sh because that has changed. So just go here and delete this file here. And we have that zip there still. So if you don't have it, just hit up until you get it. And then we will just copy that back there. It should replace that there. There we go. And we'll make our way back to CodeDeploy. And I'm pretty sure we can just do a retry. I don't think it caches the zip. So let's just hit retry. Because it should pull it every time, right? And maybe we'll have better luck this time. And this should be really fast because in-place deploys are super, super fast. Oh, look at that. Look how fast that was. Look how fast that was. That was so impressive. Okay, so let's go check out that instance. We can probably go to the deployment group here. Click into that deploy. And now we have the instance ID, so we'll click on that. We will get our public IP address here. And there you go. So that is in-place CodeDeploy. Blue-green deployments are a lot more involved, and I don't think it's worth our time because I feel that it would take like an additional 30-40 minutes just to do a blue-green deployment. But blue-green deployment, what it does, I can just pull up maybe the deployment group here. So we can just talk about it for a second. But the deployment group, when you have in place in blue-green relies on an EC2 auto-scaling group. So for that to work, there's this manually provision. I've never used that. But with the EC2 auto-scaling group, the idea is that we would have to put our instance in an auto-scaling group, and then it would use that so then when a blue-green occurred, it would copy that auto-scaling group, it would launch a new EC2 instance, and then it would apply the versions of that. That's why we baked the AMI, because I thought that we would have to spin up another instance. But you know, I don't think we need to do that. That's more like the SysOps Associate or the DevOps Pro, and we're doing the Developer Associate here. But you know what we could do as an additional layer is set up code pipeline so that we can automatically deploy every time there is a push to code commit. So I think that's what we'll do next. And that will, I guess, be our code pipeline follow along, but we will just attach it onto this. Okay, so let's set up a code pipeline. And we are going to definitely need a code commit repository, and that's why we set one up earlier in this CodeDeploy follow along. So what I want you to do is make your way back to Cloud9. And we're just going to close a couple of these things here. We got a lot of stuff going on here. And remember, we have this Git directory, so just make sure you're in it. So just make sure you're in that, my code app, whatever you called it. And we need to commit some files. We definitely do not want this revision file in here, the zip. So we're going to go ahead and delete that out. App spec, index, restart. Yep, this is all good. So we're going to go git add all. And I'm actually going to change this to version 3. And we'll say git commit -m version 3. And then we will do a git push. Don't worry about these errors here. These aren't important. I got to type git push right for it to, there's no command called git push. But we have to successfully push here. We will go back up to code commit. We'll just make sure that our changes are there. And we'll go into my code app. And there are our files. So let's make our way over to code pipeline. So we'll go to code pipeline. And this shouldn't be too hard. This should be pretty darn easy. So we'll go create a pipeline, my code pipeline. We'll let it create a new service role. That sounds great to me. I didn't know you could change the artifact location. I would just set the default one. We'll go next. We'll choose code commit. And then we will choose our repo here. We will choose the master branch, and we'll let Amazon CloudWatch monitor that. That seems a good idea to me. We are not going to have a build stage. We'll skip that. There's nothing for us to build. So, but you have to either have a build or deploy. It will not let you build a pipeline without one or the other. We're going to use CodeDeploy here. We're going to choose our application. We'll choose our deployment group. We'll go to next. And we will create a pipeline. All right, so it already started trying to deploy, and it's already failed. If we go check the message here, we got an error message saying the action failed because the encryption key used by Ava's code commit is unavailable. Make sure the encryption key is available and try again. So that tells me that it's probably a policy issue. So maybe when we set up our code pipeline, we created a policy with it. I bet it did. So let's look for that IAM policy wherever it is. Not sure how we would locate it. It definitely made one. So what we'll do is we'll just go over to IAM and just take a guess. So we'll go over here. And we'll just go to roles, I suppose, and we'll just type in code pipeline. Yep, and that's the pipeline I just made. Just double checking here. Code pipeline service role, my code pipeline. So I think what we'll do is we'll just add KMS. KMS, key. It was key management. Will this do it? List, read, write. Let's give it a go. Usually shouldn't be that liberal with your KMS access here, but if that fixes our problem here, we're going to be in better shape. So I'm going to say release changes again, and we will release. And we'll see if we have better luck this time around. And there's no refresh button on here. I guess it's just happening in real time here. Oh, look at that. So that's all it took to fix that issue there. And we'll see if this deploy is just successful. And this should be really fast, the deploy section. So we will just wait here patiently. We can click into it as well, see how it's doing. So it's already done. So maybe that was a bit misleading there. Yep, it's already done. And so let's go check out that EC2 instance. So we'll go into CodeDeploy here. We will check in, we'll click into that deployment group. We'll go to the last deploy. We'll go down to here. It would be easy if we just kept that tab open. And then we will go get that IP address, paste it in. Still says version 2. I don't trust it. So I'm just going to open up Firefox and be back here in a second because sometimes Chrome caches. Actually, we can just go here to inspect and we'll go to performance network. Make sure cache is disabled, refresh. So it says version 2. Okay. All right, well, let me just investigate. I'll be back here in a moment. All right, so what I did was I downloaded this file, I opened it up, and I wanted to see if it said version 3 in it, and it didn't. It said version 2. So I guess the code it bundled was the old version. That is a little bit confusing to me, but instead of thinking about it too hard, let's just trigger a new deploy to our pipeline and see if that just resolves itself. So I'm going to go to our code pipeline here. We'll click into this, and I'm just going to trigger it by pushing new code here. So let's make it version 4 this time, even though we never saw version 3. And what we'll do here is we'll do git add all. Another thing is that it's copying those files into that revision directory. I don't know if it deletes the old files for the revisions. So that's something I might want to consider. When we're talking about the appspec YAML file, we use this script to, like, they go here, but I would assume that it would always replace them. But it doesn't matter because the zip contained version 2. So what we'll do is we're just going to go ahead and commit our changes here, git status. So do git add period, git commit -m version 4. We'll do a git push, not push. Push is not a command. We'll go back to the top here and we'll see if this is triggered. So this should be triggering. There we go. So it's in progress. So now we just have to wait and see what happens. And while this is going, let's go check out code commit and let's just make sure that we have the latest version in there. I'm very certain that we do. But you know, sometimes things just don't go the way you want them to go. If you go into here, this says version 4, right? Okay, so that succeeded, and we will not have to wait very long here for the deploy. Deploys are super fast. We can even click into this. It's probably already done. Yep, it's already done. go back here, refresh, version 4. So I don't know why that was an issue. That was the initial commit, so that's why I didn't trust it too much, and I just figured we'd do another deploy. Yeah, there you go. So that's all you had to do to set up code pipeline. So yeah, we didn't show the code build step, but you know, it's not that big of a deal. But anyway, there you go. All right, so we probably should do a bit of cleanup here. So what we'll do is we'll go to code pipeline, which should be on the left-hand side here. We'll make our way over to the pipelines here, and we will delete this pipeline. Delete. Great. And the next thing we'll do is go to CodeDeploy, and we'll go to Applications, and we'll delete that application wherever we can. View details, delete application, delete. And then we will go to code commit. So I don't need a bunch of repos I'm never going to use. So let's go ahead and delete this one. Delete. And then we'll go to EC2. And we will terminate that instance. Code deploy. Terminate. Yes. And we also made an AMI, so might as well get rid of that. We're not using it for anything. Deregister. So what do they call it? Yeah, we will deregister this image. Don't know why they just don't call it delete. And that's all our cleanup. So yeah, we're all done here.